So yeah, recently I've started picking up Infernoble again. I had a small break of playing Infernoble because I was playing Exosister, because Exosister is also, I think, a pretty solid deck right now. Not the best, but definitely it's capable of winning games, but they're just other decks, and Exosister is probably a bit too fair. But yeah, for Infernoble, I just wanted to show my deck list. It's probably still not perfect, but I want to get my thoughts on certain cards, why I play certain cards, why I don't play certain cards, and yeah, so let's get into the deck list. The first card I play is still one copy of Gearfried. Playing multiples has only one reason, and that would be that Gearfried kind of works like an enter handtrap card if you hard draw him, because you can just special summon him, equip something to him, and negate any handtrap that's monster effect like Nibiru, Ash, or something like that. But biggest issue is, if you play multiples, you start breaking on him a lot, because if you draw 2 Gearfrieds, it just doesn't do anything. Going second, he's kinda nice because he's capable of breaking boards, but I think non-enchants just way better at that point, and if you play other cards like Cold Blood Grave and Talons, they also stop Handtraps, and in that case, if you draw a Gearfried and Talons together, it's just way better than drawing 2 Gearfrieds. And yeah, I think just going second he doesn't do enough to warrant playing multiples, but mostly it's just about a breaking, and you can always get access to him through Angelica, through Ogier and stuff like that. Then, for the normal summon of my deck, I'm playing 3 Ogier. The reason why I'm playing 3 Ogier over stuff like Wakaushi as your combo starter or Battle Boxer Uppercutter is that I think this card plays way better on that roll because it just foolishes the card. And also, what I really like is that no matter what, you always want to play one of him. And by playing just him as your normal summon, you don't need to up the deck count by a lot. So you just need to play 2 more of him, and it's fine. A small issue that you will have by only playing him as your normal summon is that often you'll be in a scenario where you don't have a level 4 monster, and since the deck right now is not a level 2 any 2 monsters deck anymore, you need to have a level 4 guy and a level 1 guy to go into Angelica and play from there. So the deck is gonna struggle a bit if you want to open with a level 4 monster. And yeah, like, there are also other reasons. Like, Wakaushi is probably the way better starter, because he's just a 1-card combo that does a lot. Also, Wakaushi just gives your opponent so much pressure, but I really dislike the fact that you can't play every non-engine card that you want, and with this, you are not restricted in any way. So that's the reason why I like this more than Wakaushi. And for Uppercutter, to be honest, I never tested Uppercutter, but I just really dislike the fact that you can't use your battle phase. Like, sure, going first it doesn't matter, but if you're going second, it kinda sucks. And also, what I don't like about Wakaushi and Uppercutter is that both engines lose way harder to draw than this card. So yeah, I really like Ogier as a normal summon. Then the other level 4 monsters, Turpin and Maugis, they're still like a normal summon for a deck that work for combo, because as long as you get into Angelica, you're completely fine. But they're just not as good as of normal summon as Ogier, and yeah. You don't want to play multiple of them just to have more level 4 guys in the deck, because you don't really want to see multiples of him, and because of him you can always recycle all of the cards, so you don't need multiples of them. And if I would start playing multiples, I think this card would be way worse, because in general, the grinding of the deck, even without Maugis, is kind of fine because of the effect of Durandal when it's sent to the graveyard and stuff like that. But the draw of him is just really nice in the hand trap format where you're playing multiple hand traps in your deck, because very, very often you will just get access to another hand trap through him. And in a simplified game set, he's amazing. And the protection effect is also nice, so yeah, playing him just makes your deck build way easier by playing all the fire rodents as his one-off. And then, like I said, also one copy of Oliver. He's not as good as he was. Back then he was just great, and you played him at 3 because Hulky Firebreaks was the goal of the deck. And any monster with the tuner is Hulky Firebreaks, and Hulky Firebreaks is full combo. But yeah, right now, the only thing that's really nice about him is that he works even if you have no monster on board. So if your board is getting nuked during your turn for some reason, you can still use him to combo, just summon him, equip Turpin, or use effective Turpin to special summon him, or special summon him with the Museum then. And then you have Angelica, and from Angelica you can play the game. Yeah, but even if he wouldn't be as great, you still need to play him as a one-off for the protection effect. Yeah, so like one Oliver is definitely fine. Then one copy of Renaud. For Renaud would actually be a reason right now to play multiple Renaud, even if you play Maugis, and that reason would be that often if you summon any of those guys and equip Durandal, and the Durandal gets ashed, you kinda struggle because you won't get access to Renaud to get into Angelica. So if you play like 3 Renauds, it's less likely that Ash on Durandal hurts because you more often would draw Renaud. But the bigger issue there is that 2 Renauds alone don't do anything except maybe an SP. So you don't really want to see multiple Renauds. You always want to see the one copy in access in addition to your Ogier or Maugis and stuff like that. And yeah, with Maugis you can always recycle him to get back access to him. So 1 Renaud is probably still the perfect ratio for him. 1 copy of Ricciardetto. Ricciardetto is just way worse now, because without Isolde, using him to start your combo is not as easy. But still, the Sinful Spoils in this deck are just the best extenders possible, because they are basically a 1-card combo as long as you have any of those 5 in the graveyard. So you need to play him that so that Diabellstar is just a really good card with him. He's just not as good to draw, he's not that as easy to use, so he's definitely worse than he was back then. Then 1 new card in the deck, that being Bradamante. Like, Bradamante has 2 effects. First of all, you can equip any equip spell from your deck to an warrior monster you control as long as it's a legal target. And the second effect is that if she's destroyed by battle, you can, and she has no equip spell on her, you can just reborn her and equip the monster destroyed her by battle to her as an equip spell. This effect doesn't seem too good, it also doesn't come up too often, but it's just really nice in some scenarios. For example, you can force the negate of the Voices Voice cards because it does not target, so you can just crush her into the ritual guy and try to steal them, what's definitely nice. And also stuff like Fenrir. You can just norm summon her, crush into Fenrir, and what's the best part about it is if you have a Turpin in grave or hand, then you can just special summon him into main phase 2 because she has an equip spell and play from there. So yeah, she's definitely nice. But the main reason is Angelic Ring. Because right now it's just way harder to get access to Angelic Ring, because with Isolde you just dump it at the grave and you have access to it through choice. But now you can't really just dump it with something. The only way you could dump it would be by hard summoning Roland. But by playing her you can just search her with Durandal, Heritage of the Chalice and stuff like that. And then you can equip the Angelic Ring to any monster that has an equip spell. So yeah, she just makes it way easier. But right now, I'm not main decking the Angelic Ring because I feel like it's not worth main decking him. So yeah, you could probably just put this into the side deck. So if you side in the Angelic Ring, you have also access to her. But in the worst case, she's a consistency tool. So yeah, I think she's a good card, but putting her on the side deck just gives you more space for non-engine. Then for the spells, 3 Museum. I think there's no explanation needed for this card. This card is still busted for the deck. It's probably the best main deck card that you can play. Yeah, the only thing that I won't play is the Terraforming, just because it runs into draw. But yeah, like the Reborn effect is crazy, not being runs per turn is crazy. I think I don't need to explain why this card is just really good. Even without Isolde and stuff like that, this card is probably a reason to play the deck. Then for the equip spells, I'm playing 2 copies of Durandal and 1 All Mace. The thing is, 1 of All Mace, you need to play it. It's just the second best equip spell to play, and you often need multiples. The Grave effect is really nice to add back Gearfried and stuff like that, so playing 1 All Mace just makes sense. For Durandal, in theory, you could also cut this Durandal and play 1 Joyce or stuff like that. Because Joyce in general is kinda nice to play around stuff like Summon Limit, because you can simply summon him, search for Joyce, add back the use Joyce to add back the Gearfried, and with the second summon you have a Gearfried. And without Joyce, you would need to search for the Renaud, and then summon the Renaud, normal summon him, dump Gearfried, summon Renaud, add back Gearfried, and then you can't summon Gearfried because summon will be flipped. So that would be a reason to play Joyce. But I just think it's not really worth it to just play Joyce for that reason, especially not game 1, because in game 1 nobody's gonna play Summon Limit. And I rather play a second copy of Durandal just for the consistency. And the reason you kinda need to play 2 Durandal, or at least 3 equip spells, is for the nip-proof combo with Ogier, because you need to have an equip spell you can equip from the deck with All Mace, because you banished the first one with with your Gearfried, so you couldn't even equip it with All Mace from the graveyard. And yeah, that's mainly the reason why I played 3 equip spells. If you don't want to have the line to play around the Beer with Ogier and Durandal, you could also just play those 2. But in general, they're just also nice to have because it's a very easy side out card. Then 3 Heritage of the Chalice. It's basically just a Rhoda of the deck, just in better or worse, because it can add back the cards from the graveyard. It's really nice that you can play through draw with this sometimes, but also often it just can't get belt. And the fact that it can get belt makes the card a bit worse in some ways, but I think being able to add back from graveyard is just crazy. And then 1 Rhoda, because we're playing warriors. For the Sinful Spoils package, 1 Diabellstar, 3 Wanted, and 1 Original. I think it's enough for this deck. Like, you don't really need to see multiples of those. That's also a reason why I'm not playing Poplar and Bonfire stuff like this. Because in general, Poplar is okay in the deck because it gives you access to this, and Poplar put back your Infernobles into the spell trap zone, and that's pretty cool. But Bonfire makes you lose harder to draw. You could play just the one Poplar and play Banshee in the extra deck and play lines with this, but I feel like playing the Banshee and one Poplar isn't really worth it, because Poplar is kind of a huge brick, and I'd rather have a consistent deck, because you can just draw any of those and it's fine. You could play multiple Black Ridges, but I think I would see non-engine than this, because in this deck, it's not really a starter. It's only a starter if you already have a level 4 guy in the grave, so it's just a crazy good extender. And the good part about this is, if those two get, like, if this card is going to 1, you'll just cut those and play 3 Black Ridge, and it's gonna be fine. Like, 1 is way better than Black Ridge, I don't need to explain this, but yeah. This ratio is just completely fine for this deck. It's just a crazy good extender in the deck. Oh yeah, small thing to mention, you might be able to play a bigger Snake Eye engine and use Flamberge, but I think, like, same for Poplar. I think it's not worth the bricks. Then to the non-engine. I'm playing a heavy Handtrap lineup, especially because Maugis is great with Handtraps, because you always draw into Handtraps with him. So 3 Ash, 3 Railer, triple Imperm, and triple Debut for the Handtraps. They are basically just the best Handtraps right now. Like, if we get into a 10x format in next format, 10x is gonna get more popular. Railer and Debut probably are kinda bad then. Also, if Voices is gonna get more popular. The Debuts also kinda suck. Imperm and Railer are fine, but not as good. So depending on format, you'll need to change them. But right now for Snake Eye, those are the best Handtraps. And basically everybody's playing them, so I think I don't need to explain why those are probably the best Handtraps right now. But with every meta, it's gonna change probably. And last to non-engine are 2 talents and 1 called by, because everybody's playing Handtraps, anti-Handtrap cards are good. This is also pretty solid going second. It's just really, really good. And like I said, you could play the 3rd talents by putting the Bradamante into the side deck, and it would be completely fine. Then for the extra deck, first of all, the Synchro monsters. I'm playing 1 Baroness, 1 Angelica, 1 Charles, and 1 Roland. You definitely don't need multiple Baroness. 1 Baroness is just completely fine. Basically the same for Angelica. Like, 1 Angelica is okay. A second one can come up for some lines, but 1 is just completely fine. Because also if she's set in the graveyard for some reason, you can reborn her with Durandal, and then she does the same as you did. Charles would be a reason, there's a reason to play multiple Charles. It's not that the second one could come up in the follow-up. It's mainly just that if your opponent's playing Unicorn, this card is the best card you can rip out of your opponent's extra deck. Because without Charles, there's no way they can get into the Link 2. The Link 1 monster. Often people just think this card's new Isolde, so they're gonna rip this card. But it's not really correct, because if you rip this, I can still go into him, use the field spell, rebound something, and then I can get into Charles. But if you banish the Charles, there's just nothing you can do. You can't go into the Link 1, and Link 1 is just the best card in the extra deck. And for Roland, you definitely need to play the 1 Roland, makes sense. But there's also a reason to play 2 Rolands, and that's the reason of Angelic Ring. He's the second way to get access to Angelic Ring. You just hard summon him, use the effect to get a Search in the end phase, and dump a Crypt spell, you use this effect before Charles, send Angelic Ring, get a Search, and then you can equip the Angelic Ring. And if you only play 1, you can still do it, but with the second one, you can still use her effect and summon him, and that's definitely nice. But yeah, playing all of them as a one-off is probably fine. For the Exceed monsters. 1 Dempsey, I think he's the only mandatory Exceed monster you need to play, because sometimes it's just really nice to get access to Renaud with him. So yeah, 1 Dempsey is still pretty good, but he doesn't come up that often. And then because I'm playing the Dempsey, I'm also playing 1 Zeus. Reason for that is, he doesn't come up too often, but if he comes up, he's capable of winning you a game you shouldn't have won otherwise. And also, if you're playing stuff like Talents, it's still nice to have access to a Zeus if you're stealing an Exceed monster. So yeah, the 1 Zeus is still pretty nice. And then, 1 Typhon. You have the space in the extra deck, and Typhon is just a card that sometimes comes up and wins you games that you shouldn't be able to win. And that's it for all of the Exceed monsters. Artoricus doesn't make any sense anymore because you can't send Equus spells into the grave with Isolde. And the rest of the extra decks are Link monsters, and then for Link monsters, 2 Charles. 2 is a perfect ratio. 1 isn't enough because you often summon 2 on the end board, if you get to the end board. And the 3rd one just doesn't come up, so... The 3rd one would only be a reason for Unicorn, but nobody's gonna bench those with Unicorn. Then 1 SP, also very often part of the end board. Playing 2 would probably be right sometimes, but for now, then just not enough events for me to keep a 2nd SP if she's worth 100 euros. So playing a 2nd one would probably be correct, but yeah, 1 is also completely fine. But the sad part about this deck is you definitely need to play 1 because she's just amazing in the deck, because she's a warrior, that's an interruption on the end board. Going 2nd, she's amazing. Yeah, so you need to play her in this deck. There's no way around that. Then 1 Anima. Could also be Linkuriboh. Just the Linkuriboh effect doesn't come up too often to give you protection, because you often lead your level 1 monsters to go into Angelica. So yeah, using Anima to try to suck an Appaloosa is kind of nice. And sometimes your opponent's gonna play into it. Then also Heater and Dark. Because it's a fire deck, and Promethean Princess is a pretty solid card. And also, if your opponent's playing a fire deck, Monster Reborn's pretty solid, and Steam Die Bellstar is pretty strong. Then 1 Princess. Princess is just broken. I don't think I need to explain why she's good. One thing to mention about her is that there's one nice thing in this deck specifically, and that's that Ogier gives you protection. So if you say effect in the grave, target, for example, Gearfried control that can't be destroyed because of Ogier, you just pop your opponent's monster and your Gearfried will be on board because his Gearfried is protected. So that's definitely a nice thing about Princess in this deck. And for the last card in the extra deck, 1 Amploway. Amploway is not important. You could cut this for the 2nd SP, for example, or other things if you want to play 2nd Rodent, or want to play 2nd Charles for Unicorn, stuff like that. But it's just basically there so I can get this into the graveyard easier. But yeah, that's basically it for the extra deck. For the side deck, I'm playing 4 Bustials. The main reason why I'm playing 4 one-offs is just that I can't open like 2 Druisrom because this would suck. But also there's a reason to play Serenir, even if you only play those, is for example if you climb into an SP and link him away against Voiceless Voice. Because they're mainly here for Voiceless Voice and Branded and stuff like that. But you can also side them in against the fire decks to get rid of the IP in the grave and stuff like that. But yeah, the thing that's good about Serenir is that you can chain block your SP, even if you can't target any monster on the Voiceless board, because in general, Druis is better to link off. But if your opponent's playing Voiceless, you can't just send targeted monsters, because they are non-targeted by the spell. So yeah, Druis doesn't do anything against Voices in this way, and Serenir can just chain block your SP in that way. Bustials are definitely fine stack. One thing that's also really nice about the Bustials is that you still have the line with Ogier, where you have a Bustial, you get access to Ogier, send the Turpin, use Turpin equipped to Ogier, now he can be treated as tuner, and then you have a Baroness as your 2nd or 3rd summon, and that's pretty strong. And then you can also equip the Ogier to Baroness, reborn him, and if you have a level 1 tuner extender, you can start playing from there. With an Omni Negate on board. And you could also pop 1 back in before, so yeah, Bustials are kinda crazy in this deck, for that reason. Then 3 Droll and Knockbird. They could basically be any hand trap. I just think Droll is solid on the side. The main reason why I want to play Droll is because it's pretty good against Flu. Sure, it sucks if you're getting shifted, but if you're getting shifted, you're in a bad place anyways, because this deck doesn't play on the shifter. Then 3 Cosmics. For decks like Runic Stun, Fireking, it's solid side going first, and Cosmic is probably mandatory right now because everybody's signing floodgates for going first, like some limit and stuff like that. So basically you need to side this in against basically every matchup, otherwise you probably lose to some limit. Speaking of floodgates, I'm playing Gozen and Rivalry. One thing that's really nice about Gozen and Rivalry is you don't really care about those, because you're playing a warrior deck and you're also playing a fire deck. For some endboards, Gozen is kinda bad because if you're adding a Baroness SP, Gozen isn't really good. But you can also just end on double Charles and Gearfried and stuff like that. And I think ending on a weaker endboard is completely fine if you're if you have access to Gozen and your opponent just loses to Gozen. Same for Rivalry. Except that Rivalry you really don't care about at all. And one reason why deciding Floodgates in this deck is really good is that nobody wants to side in Cosmic against this deck. So your opponent probably won't have an out for any of those cards, because if they side in Cosmic against me and I combo, Cosmic just doesn't do anything. So yeah, Floodgates in this deck specifically are just pretty good because your opponent needs to play Handtraps. It's probably the same for the Snake Eye and some limits, stuff like that. There could also be some limits in this deck, but yeah. Then one copy of Angelic Ring, like I said. I really like this card for going first, but going second, I rather have a non-engine card in hand that does something, so I just side it in for going first. And yeah, you could also put Bradamante next to her, but for now, I decided the third Talents for going first. And like I said, I also played this at last locals instead of the Bradamante in the main, and was completely fine. Might even be better, so probably put this into the main deck and put Bradamante into the side deck. And then one card that I'm playing in is one of Snatch Steal. I never used it since I put it in the side deck, but in general, in an Infernoble deck, Snatch Steal is pretty nice because it's just strong against decks like Kashtira. There are not too many decks where Snatch Steal is crazy right now, and also the fact that your opponent can just use Cosmic on this or stuff like that makes this card way worse. But the fact that you can recycle this card with Renaud is kinda crazy, so I wanted to test it. I only drew it one time against Kashtira, and then he bricked and ended with Wizzard Pass. Basically, it faced on Wizzard, not face up, so I couldn't steal it. And I had a Ghost in hand and Snatch Steal. So basically, before I even was able to use Snatch Steal, I flipped Gozen and had a fire monster on my board, so I wasn't able to use Snatch Steal. But yeah, being able to recycle Snatch Steal seems kinda crazy. Before I was playing Snatch Steal, I was playing one copy of Bell, so I have 5 cards to side in against Voice's Voice and stuff like that, also branded. But it seems fine. So yeah. Could also be Bell or another one-off. And the side deck's also gonna change with the next format anyway, so that's it for the side deck. If you have any questions about the deck, feel free to ask me in the comments about some things. If I messed up something in Deckprofile, you can also write down in the comments. And if I forgot something really important, or you have some ideas about the deck that I didn't mention in Deckprofile, also just write down in the comments. And if you want to see more content like this, consider subscribing to the channel. So, see ya.